And all right. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. We are live. So could everyone just let me know in the chat, let us know when you can see us and hear us. Again, everyone in the chat, could you just do me a big favor and let us know when you can see us and hear us? Now, the reason I ask this is I actually had a really bad experience once upon a time when I was going live, Stefan. So I don't know if you've ever gone live before and something like this has happened to you, but it was one of my first ever webinars and I thought that everything was going really, really well. And then I went back into the chat after 10 minutes, like I was going through all these slides, I was really excited, and everyone was saying like, Cameron, you're not sharing your screen. So they had just been like staring at me like while I like read the slides. It was horrible. So now I always ask at the beginning, it looks like folks can see and hear. And the other thing that which I really would love is if people could also let us know in the chat, where in the world are you joining us from? So we've already seen a lot of people tuning in. We've got Indonesia, we've got India, we've got Argentina, we've got Florida, Brazil, Chile, we've got someone else from India, the Netherlands, Beatrice from Mexico City, Quebec, another person from Quebec City, California, Oklahoma, Montreal, Argentina, Laura, Dubai, and Stefan from Zurich. And I'm not a hand letterer, so please do not look for me to have like a wonderful sign written. I'm the greetings from New York City. I did, however, get the memo that we all needed to show up today in our black t-shirt and glasses. So if you're not wearing a black t-shirt and glasses, please pause the video, go put one on, and just getting around. So before I turn this over to Stefan to share a little bit of magic with us, I'm just going to very quickly share my screen because there's just something important that you should know, like to make sure you get the most out of the presentation. So when you're watching this video, if it looks a little bit blurry or if it's hard to see something, click the gear icon and make sure the quality is all the way to the top, 720p. So make sure you're watching the highest quality possible. And if things are a little bit small, no problem. You can just hit the full screen button on the lower right to make it full screen. Just know that if you do make it full screen, you'll have to exit the full screen mode in order to ask questions in the chat or anything like that. So the one last thing I'll say, any question is good. Please ask your questions during the webinar, and I'll be asking Stefan those at the end. But the one thing that I will say, the one question I'll answer right now, there will be a replay. You will get a replay, and that replay will go to you automatically. So if I need your help, if you see anyone in the chat saying like, will there be a replay? Well, just let them know, yes, there will. I'd really appreciate that. Now, I think it's about time for us to get started here. So Stefan, I'm gonna turn this over to you and let you take it away. Really excited to see where this goes.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate that you are checking in on making sure that everything works fine. Because one of the things that I definitely know all about is streaming live on YouTube can be tricky. And I've had these comments on the side where it says like no sound and people like writing in all caps, screaming, and that was horrifying because in that moment you're just concentrated on streaming live. And so, and you might have just had the best, probably always when it doesn't work, you had the best ever intro line, like you just did the best intro, which this isn't. You checked it with the audio, so it all works. And now my intro is a little bit, I cannot say that it's been the best intro that I've ever made, but I'm still excited to be here. Thank you so much, guys, from Teachable for making this happen. This is absolutely an honor. And yeah, so what I love to share is helping other people get really good at lettering and how to improve their lettering. And since I'm usually someone who is actually very, how do I say this? I like to take things easy. I don't like to strain myself too much. So I always come up with solutions that will make my life a lot easier because I'm just that lazy. Lazy is the best word to describe it. I'm super lazy. I teach it all the time in my workshop, but laziness actually makes you super creative. And so this is why when coming up with composition, like you have those days where you're just not, like you don't have the most brilliant ideas, you don't have the coolest inspiration or this out of the box idea. And so you have to come up with a couple of of techniques to really always get around it. And so I've created these 3 lettering layouts that I'm going to show you today. And so it's number 1, it's going to be important words layout. You don't have to even think about what it is. So this is my camera. So
Hey,
you
Stefan,
probably still hear me.
it just went black
Yeah,
for a second. I just didn't. Okay, cool.
I know my DSLR camera is limited to 30 minutes at a time, so we probably will have that a second time. So just as a warning, I should have said that before, but it's a lot funnier when you don't know it, Cameron, but I know it. But I tend to forget. So first one, going back to the 3 easy lettering layouts ideas. So the number 1 is important words, shape layout, and box layout. So these are the 3 ones that I'm going to be sharing about, and we're just going to start with the very first one. So this is important words layout. Now, again, you don't necessarily have any picture in mind, so I'm just going to explain that in the easiest ways possible. So if I switch over to my overview camera that we have right here, important word layout is, for example, if I use a quote, worry is a misuse of imagination, you pick out the most important words of your quote. So worry, misuse, and imagination. Those are the main ones. And the is, a, of, the, those are kind of like schwa words, like the words that you put on the side, like you need to have them as to form a sentence. So what I would do is I would actually create this line in my head. So this is the center line, and I'll place every word straight on here, and then try to write the words, the important words, as I said it before, really big. So worry, we said that's the important word, so worry, and I usually will increase the size by 2 times. And now I'm not sure if I actually nailed the center. So since I didn't nail the center, I can actually kind of go back in here and retrace that line, get a eraser on the side, and just take a little bit that of here, and then write that down in the middle. Like I'm going to use those spaces in between that I have as a space to write something down. So is, a, and then misuse, we'll have that. So I'm going to draw it first quickly with a pencil, misuse, and maybe center it a little bit more even on the side. So here it's perfect because I can use that space on the top. So that wasn't planned, but it's actually super useful. Misuse here. And so that's pretty much centered. And of the, and I'll place this here, of the, that's pretty much centered. And then imagination, again, that's a super long word. So I'm gonna try to, imagination, write that down. Just like this. And again, it'll look super easy, and I know I make it look easy. That's something that people struggle with when they try it for the very first time, but trust me, you'll get there very fast if you keep practicing. So this is one of the things that I teach in my online course, is really practicing makes perfect. So you gotta go through those steps. You gotta go through those variations, and I cannot teach everything, but I can teach a lot of things. So as you can see right now, worry, misuse, imagination, you've got all the most important words in one sentence here, and you can go with another iteration of it. Like you can just take another piece of paper, or if you've drawn it on like a tracing paper, that makes it a lot easier. But here already I could use that with a light desk or something like that. I could just go over it again, do it a lot better, and try to really take the time to draw every single letter in the best possible shape. And you can keep on going again, like is, a. And so what the concept behind this piece is really that you would create these, that you would amplify the most important words. And so that's kind of one of the elements that I teach in, well, that was a fast cut. That's one of the elements that I teach in my class about composition, is kind of what is really important when you do a composition. Like what are the things that you need to look out for? Because it would be really sad if you like put all this effort and time into writing a quote, but at the end, like people are not able to read the quote, are not able to really appreciate it. And you just spent a lot of time just making it beautiful, but people cannot read it. So there are a lot of things that you really, really want to make sure that people can read it, can see it, and a lot of other things that are more intellectual, more, how do you say it, more psychological. And I did here a little mistake, but again, here, this is kind of what you go up for. So this is just a remake of this one here. And if you want to see like actual pieces where I use that on, it's kind of like slightly modified with some other tricks as well that I always keep in my pocket. But this is one of these pieces, do small things with great love. Another one that I just finished on a live stream this week was this one here. So you're capable of amazing things. So you'll see it's a center line. It's all centered on one line. The smallest word, like this one, the off, is really not that important, but like you are capable and amazing things. Like there are all those big words. Same thing here, all centered on the same line. So these are these two examples that I have for you for this. Now, the second one, the second composition layout trick that I want to show you guys is here, the shape layout. So let's switch over to this one here. So this is the title, shape layouts. Shape layouts sound easy, but they are actually quite this easy trick is like you put all the words inside a shape, like a box, a circle, an oval circle, this hourglass, or even try, you probably cannot see this, or you try to put this into a shape of a human head, like a silhouette. Like right now, I'm not sure. I'm not necessarily the best head shape drawer, but like, let's say this is your head shape, right? So if we take this quote, for example, change is the end result of learning. So we can start off and we'll try to use all the space. So if I write it down in here, so change, and I can transform every letter to fit it well inside this head. So change is the, so I'll write it maybe in here, smaller is the, and then we'll have end results. Like I'm trying to really use up the space that I have. So next time when I go over it again, I can really go out of my way, try to make use of more of this space. And right now, as I'm drawing it with the brush pen, it's not necessarily the best way to go around, but I can, like, this is like stepping up your game, but like going with the ligatures of your letters and really going around. Like change is the end result of learning. So we'll might do this in here, and this is one of those mistakes that people will tend to make, and this is why I'm doing it, to show you guys why this is a mistake, is because I'm trying to fill this word and I'm trying to place the last word kind of in here. So end result of learning. And the reason why this is a critical mistake is that our reading habit is going from left to right and not necessarily going from here to here, but from here to here. We jump always the line. But this, again, you can go again around and write it out. Like if you have a box layout, you try to fill it out, like writing it down, for example, here, change, fill this out. And here, like, this is what I can do with the H. So playing around with those letters, learning to play around with those letters is hugely important. And then I could really use up the space, but what I could do is also just play around and and since end result is actually a super long word, it's not necessarily the best that I push it over to the side, but result. And then we have of learning, and I'll start with the L, so like this here, and write it out, learning. And then maybe even go all the way up here and then write the off inside here. So this kind of way, it will fill this out. And again, take that again, start over and draw it up. And now you might ask yourself, like, how does this actually look like in real life? Like how, like I can see somebody using this head, like drawing something inside of a head, but I've done pictures where I've used a image, a silhouette of someone like in the in a beautiful scenery of like a beach in sunset, and you see the silhouette of that person, like that's kind of what you use. And then you write that inside of that person. You write like a really beautiful quote inside there, or the other way around. Or, and this is what I've often used, is like I fill out a whole page. So my canvas, my shape is actually this canvas here. It's the full page, and I try to draw it all the way down. So I have all these words, and I actually have this 2 sides. I didn't know that. Like I think it started halfway here, and I never ended up. This is one example. Here is another one. Again, still, you see the size is, or the shape is really a rectangle. You can still do an oval, you can do other shapes, but I'm trying to fill out every inch of this space. So trying to make sure that I can really use it all the way up. And lastly here, this one here is also all the way up, filled out. So this is all penciled, it's all penciled out. And I really use just the shape again, trying to fill out every little space and making sure that I use up everything in here. So shape layout is actually quite common that I've been using this, and now comes one of my actual favorite pieces. This one, guys, maybe you can guess which one this one is. It's kind of a mix of both really, but it's the center line, it's the important word layout. So again, everything's centered, all the words on top, and kind of like a symmetry game playing around the styles as well. All right, time for the last version, the last iteration, the last lettering idea, the one thing that I kind of use to always come up with cool layouts. So this is the boxes layout. Now, a lot of you have seen these pieces in my Instagram, and I'm going to show you beforehand. So this is one that I just finished. I posted that one online just a couple of, actually just yesterday. And I did that all with watercolor, a tool that I actually rarely ever use and I don't really like to use. And this is another one as well that I've done a long time ago before, but works the same principle. So how does it work? Well, I'm glad you asked. So the idea is really simple. It's to break down your quote into the exact amount of boxes that you need to write it out. So for this example, I'm actually going to turn this page around. I'm going to turn the whole page lengthwise because that's usually the Instagram layout that I often need. And so I'm drawing out just a rectangle. So one of my favorite things to drink is coffee. And I guess a lot of you guys can relate to that one. So what I'm doing here is it's always time for coffee because it doesn't matter if it's late at night, like right now where I'm at, it's, I think it's about 8 p.m. Yeah, 8:17 p.m. So one thing that I use all the time to keep me awake is drinking coffee, but right now it would be too late to drink coffee. And I have this whole thing that like I've been drinking coffee way before I started lettering, but that's beside the point. But coffee quotes are always amazing. So it's always time for coffee. That's the quote that I want to use. So I'm going to be dividing my piece of paper into, so it is, or it's, and I'm going to divide that here. I'm seeing like it should easily fit in here, always could easily fit in here. And then we have time for, and then like time is a little bit longer. 4 has 3 letters, so 4 and 3 letters. I'm just going to divide it a little bit around here. And now I can play around. So right now I'm just going to write down in here. So this is, I really love doing these kind of pieces where it goes around. And so now I have to really focus only on filling out this piece alone. So no more quotes, no more creating all layouts and everything. You just have to focus on filling out that one box. So in here, I'm writing it's, and probably one of my biggest challenge always is to not make a spelling mistake, which I tend to always do. And apparently 6 years of lettering has not taught me to spell check my work quite enough. So that's still something that I have to worry about. So it's always, and I'm gonna write it in here, always. And you know what? Don't worry about going outside of the box. That actually is really cool. It's a cool and fun way to play around. And so this is here what I'm doing always, and then time, we'll write that one in big block letters to fill this out. adding an arrow in here to point down to the coffee because, hey, those signs are always fun. And so I can write in here 4, and then I can write coffee in a beautiful cursive style lettering. And there we go. So if you want to come like figure out like what are cool styles of like drawing letters in, like I know that you can draw letters in just this way and kind of the easy way, but letters are so complex, are so much fun. You know, you can really like go all the length. Like I've been drawing letters for, again, 6 years. And one thing that I found out is like, there's never a time where you can feel like, oh, I know how to draw letters now, or like I've tried everything. Like there's no way that you can try everything. There's always something more that you can try. The same thing goes with composition. Like I'm still learning and adding more styles to my repertoire and to what I know. And so this is what I love really about drawing letters or using letters, because we see letters everywhere. And so this is one of the first opening lines that I use in my course, is like saying like, hey, we see letters everywhere. And this is why it's actually so complicated to draw letters, because we see them all the time. They're everywhere around us. And so we have a hard time to really find a way to draw them in a beautiful way. And so this is kind of what I'm doing here. I'm trying to, like, this is a simplified version, but you can draw letters in a really beautiful, spectacular way, adding serifs, adding all these elements that make a letter super special and coming up with your own unique style. And so this is exactly what I teach you in my classes, in my ultimate lettering class, on how you can create beautiful lettering styles. And so here we go. I fill out all these elements around here. And then again, here I can just add another style, for example, of shading. Instead of doing it all black, like right, these boxes are now a little bit too dark, but I can shade it a little bit differently here. Like you can go all 80s if you want to. You can create these Western style fonts. Like imagine you go to a party and you can create your signs, like, or you do like host your own parties. Like that's where I feel like this could be really useful, is you host your own party and you kind of want to create like a Western sign. Like let's take a break really quick for a second. And you create like a sign that says hello or open. And then you write that out just like that. And now, like, how does a Western sign actually look like? So you gotta know kind of what styles you need to look out for, and you need to be able to copy styles and learn how to adapt them. And so this is exactly what I teach in my classes, really, because I feel like it's more important that you know how to create or copy, see something beautiful, and then just do it your own style. So like I'm adding these thick boxes, these thick, beautiful boxes around, kind of like that. And again, you can take your time with this. You don't have to rush it. You're not always on a live stream with Teachable at any given time, but this is what you can do. And so I'm just showing you kind of like the cool things that you can do if you would be having a party now and then, and you want to impress your friends with kind of the cool decor that you are setting up, and then like really like, oh, this was really homemade, like drawing this on a beautiful chalk sign when people are coming in, or having a bar sign with a whole Western style. And now you can really improve on that. Like you can really go all in and add more to the effect. And so again, knowing kind of like where to start, how to do it, this is kind of like how you really get good at something. Okay, back to the last tip here. So it's always time for coffee. Just finishing off here this sign. And again, I can change the style of the cursive lettering. So this is also something really fun to do, is to know exactly like where do you add weight? How do you improve a piece? And so I can go around take my time and really fill it all out, have some fun with it. This is a time where I actually get quiet because I find this super relaxing. It's a super relaxing hobby. It's also, when you do it as a job, you kind of need to worry about that because sometimes you feel like work is too relaxing. It's too much fun. And that is cool. And so here we go. This is filling it out. So here you guys got a sign. It's always time for coffee. And this is kind of really how easy and simple this is. Again, if we take the other examples here, make it happen. And well, it's not that original, but make it happen today. I kind of use the same principle here, kind of added another word, but you can see like it's super easy. I've changed it around. It like looks totally different, even though it has kind of the same principle. Like different style of lettering, different style of elements here. Like this is a square, this is a blowing thing up here, but then the styles of lettering that are pretty much the same, but not exactly the same. And you can see there are a ton of different styles that you can do. So again, if we go through all of the things that we've learned just right now, taking it around first with the worry is a misuse of our imagination, go through this simple layout, the important words layout, where you just pick up the most important words of your quote. For example, again, if it was, it's always time for coffee, always, time, and coffee would be the main words that you would use, and then you would put the focus on there. And the other words you just put in one line and small, and so you can easily do that. So this is the very first one. Keep it centered, put the size of the words, like double the size than the other lines of the words, and that's the easiest way to go about it. The other one, the shape layouts, where you kind of like try to fill out a whole box or a shape that you have. Like it can be the shape of a camera if you want to do something creative. You can try to map out all the words. Like if you're having a hard time to just draw inside of the words, then create like kind of mix the box layout with the other layout. So meaning that if you have like a circle, like why not break down that circle into boxes where you just know like something in here like change, and you can write that down in here, and then play around, like really play around with what you have to just fit it around here. So change is so I can write that down, is the end result. And see here, I can go all the way up, and I can use this ligature of this one of the G here from change and write it around of. And now the one problem is here, because I just started around, is that I didn't have anything to fill it out. So make sure that you map out exactly the amount of words that you need. If you have a box like this, like try to just break it down, make these pieces, and then put it all together. Same way that you do the boxes layout. So kind of similar way. And again, finally, we have the boxes layout where you just really put in, you divide the rectangle that you have into the exact amount of words that you need to fill it all out, to add all these spaces in between, and use that up. And yeah, that is pretty much it. That is what I have to say about how to do like easy lettering layout ideas. Super easy way to have fun with words and not to be scared of it. Like that's the last thing that I want you guys to have, is to have a fear of looking at quotes and not being sure, like, how do I solve this? Like one of the reasons I created this piece here, this way you can see it better, like it's creating all these different styles of lettering so I can actually, one, learn how to experiment with all the lettering. It's to try out different styles, but then also learn how to fill it all up. And so whenever I got, like, one of the worst moments I had in my life was trying to convince clients to change their brief for me to fit the amount of words, and so that I could have like everything that had 3 words or less was easy for me to do, but everything that had more like 5, 10, 30, 40 words, like that was just, I didn't know how to solve that. And I don't want you guys to have that same problem. I want you to be able to tackle any problem, learning how to do the process, like the process of composition, how you start, where you end up, like what is the things that you need to look out for so that you have this beautiful composition, that you have a great end result, and that like your client at the end will appreciate it as much as well. Because no client wants to see their billboards filled with words, but you cannot read it. And so knowing what you have to apply, making sure that it looks stunning, it looks still stunning and is readable, that's the great thing that you can learn. And so these techniques that I've applied here, those are the ones that I often applied, like as you can see in my work that I've done. It's something that whenever somebody comes onto me and asks me to do something, I just know how to do it. And then again, the same thing applies to all the lettering styles. Like I showed you this whole page of different words. That came out of a problem that I've always been drawing the same style over and over again. And I know one of the first things that people are looking for is like their own style. But before you can develop your own style, before you can develop your own voice, you need to learn how to speak. You need to speak, and you need to speak a lot. And once you speak a lot, once you have your tone, you feel like you can actually, you know exactly what to say. Like you cannot actually have a message before you actually learn to speak. And so it's kind of like the same thing with lettering. You first learn all these diverse styles. You know how to do all these styles. You try these styles out. I'm still in my learning phase. I'm not sure whenever I'm getting out of that phase. So I'm still learning and hoping to learn as much as I can as I go on. And so this is what I really hope for you all to learn as much as you can. All right, that is what I have. So Cameron, probably need you back to lead us into the Q&A session.
And all right, so at this point, what I'd love would be to hear any questions from anyone. So any questions for Stefan, or a lot of folks have requested, like, I'm curious to see, you know, how is this letter done? How is that letter done? Are you open to those sorts of requests along with this?
Absolutely, anything.
All right. So the first question here is actually an equipment question. It's from Humera. And Humera says, I struggle on finding what is the best paper to use. So I'm kind of curious if you can go into a little bit about, you know, how do you actually pick your papers for this kind of thing? Do you do different papers based off of what you're working on? That would be, I think, really interesting.
All right, great question. Usually I'm someone who loves to teach people how to fish and not give them a fish. So that's the principle of how I teach things. So the same thing applies to like materials that I use. So like what type of paper do I use? So I'm not really specific on the type of paper that I use. I'm not even specific on the pens I use. I have tried a ton of pens. Like you can just see all these pens that are in here. I know which one I love. I know which one I hate. But that goes through trying them all out. I can pick out some pens over here. Those are all white markers. They're all different. And so I know that I love these Uni chalk markers. And I'm not doing any plug-in here. I'm not sponsored by them. Or these Uni Posca markers. But I know equally that the Sharpies, not this one, not the white one, that one is not great, is really awesome. And what else do I have? Like I have all different, like I have Edding, what is that? Terracotta marker. So I use all different sorts of things. Paper is a little bit trickier because you don't use like you don't buy one sheet of paper and then just try it out and see like how does it feel, but it has the exact same effect. So whenever you go around, like you take your favorite brush and you draw on it, and then you try to figure out like, do I need rough paper? Do I need like super glossy paper? Do I want paper that like for this watercolor piece here? This is a great example. This has two sides. Like one is super flat, it's glossy, and one is rough and has a lot of texture. So it depends on what you're after when you're drawing something. For me, most of the things that I do on paper, usually it's not a finished piece. So I'm not like, this is copying paper. So it's like really the most plain basic paper that you can find. And the only thing that I've learned that you need to take care of, like if you're using a lot of brush pens, like Tombows, this is a Stabilo brush that I'm using, it will rub off the nib. So that's kind of the only thing that you need to be aware of, that like paper, acts like sandpaper, like rough paper, has the same effect on your nibs of your brushes, of your pens, because that will wear off your pens, some faster, some slower. So that's the only thing that will determine. But again, go after what you love, what you like, because your preferences will be different from my preferences. Like the same way, like I can teach you all these styles, the exact same styles. And I'm not choosing to do that because I want you to learn the styles that you want to learn. The camera should turn back on. And we're back. It's a heart attack for Cameron, probably. So yeah, the same thing applies to lettering. Is you need to figure out like what are the things that you love, and then learn how to do those things. And this is what I'm teaching you. Is not like I'm taking apart letters and showing you how you can reconstruct those letters, how you can come up with your own styles and figure out the ingredients. It's like I can share you the recipe, like how you can cook a recipe, but what I would love for you to do is like be able to go into a restaurant, eat a dish, and just be able for yourself to deconstruct that dish and repeat it and redo that. And that same principle applies to lettering, and that's what I'm teaching you in my courses. So the same thing applies to paper and the tools that you use. Like whatever feels the best for you, the paper, like you'll buy some new paper and you'll try it out. And then at some point, like after a couple of years, you probably just know like, oh, this is my favorite brush that I use. This is the favorite paper that I use. This is the favorite pen. Like I know, and this is funny because I've never thought that I would have a favorite pencil. And so where is it? I have the pencil somewhere in here. I'm not even sure if I still have it in here. That's a bad example, but here you go. You see, I'm showing you the difference between a used pencil and a pencil that I haven't used. So this pencil I've used a lot. This is why it's so tiny. And this is the pencil that hasn't been used. And like that one was expensive. That one was really price worthy. And so it's not always price. It's not always the quality. It's just sometimes it's the feeling that you get from using a piece of like a pencil. And that's the one that you should stick with.
Chat here. There's a few other questions coming in. And one question from Alex is, any tips on how to go from a hobby in this to a business?
Ooh, that is a great question. I actually, on that topic, I actually went through my archive and tried to figure out which was my very first client work piece that I've made. And I used to be a wedding photographer. I took a lot of wedding pictures, photographed a lot of weddings, couples. And so I actually tried to combine one of the work that I was already getting in, trying to upsell my work and add like, hey, you know what? I can create your wedding invitation. I can create your save the date card. I can write your thank you card. And so I kind of like upsell them to like a bigger package like this ultimate wedding package that included, again, a couple shoot beforehand where we went out into the woods or just on a mountain here in Switzerland. And we took amazing wedding pictures, or a couple pictures. And then I created the wedding invitation. And since I had like a knowledge of like how I need to compose that stuff, I knew how to take those pictures better. So that's kind of like a way that I could convince them to actually hire me. And since I was able to offer them everything together, like everything costs less for them than if they would have gotten everything individual, but the whole package together, that's what I was charging them to do. And so that's where I actually started implementing my lettering work. And I started getting pieces there, here and there. And then afterwards, after weddings, I think it moved up to kind of like t-shirt designs. And I was still trying to publish my work on Instagram, do it as a hobby just for me. And that work got traction. People started to hire me more for other projects. And so this is kind of what you do. Like if you are starting out, if you really have nothing that you can kind of like connect it to, like photography and graphic design works really well. Or if you have a website business, like if you're creating websites, like you can create those beautiful pieces. If you're doing videography, then why not add an animation of lettering? Like there's so many different ways that you can upsell your already existing work to add that. But if you do not have any of those and you're just like trying to get started, why don't go to a cafe or like window shops, like where you can try to help their help their aesthetics or sell your art to make them look better. So for example, what I'd love to do is to go to coffee shops and see if I found a really disgusting sign, a sign that just looked washed down or just there was no love in it, that I would just like ask them like, hey, can I do that for you? And like the first time I might do it for free. The next time is just say like, hey, just so you know, like I don't know, start with $50 and then go up like $100, $200. I don't know. Like it always depends on how much people are willing to pay. And so this is kind of what I would suggest to anyone who wants to turn their hobby into their full-time job, is to really start getting work in, but also save a lot up beforehand so you do not have to say yes to any job. You can really do whatever you want. And so that's called, in the business term, it's called a runway. So having enough money ahead to just be able to lose money. And so that's kind of like Amazon is really known for, Netflix as well. Like they are still losing money, like Amazon, not anymore, but Amazon was losing money for 30 years or so or something, or 20 years, until they actually started making money or making profit. And so they were just reinvesting everything they had. And so that's kind of what you want to be doing at the beginning. You want to reinvest, you want to invest in marketing, you want to invest in promoting your work and stuff like that. And so that's kind of the best way to start, but also just work on your craft, keep on pushing it, keep on improving it.
In the chat, that's a fantastic answer, Stefan. And I think that was honestly worth it by itself for this, to come to this webinar. So one question coming in here, there was, where was it? So Sanskrit says, when you first started out, how did you begin? One word every day, one letter? How? Where did you get your inspiration from? How did you build your confidence in hand lettering? And well, on that topic, I'm kind of curious if you could tell a little bit about like the course, which is actually available today, if that goes into that at all.
So I started lettering, and I talk all about that story in my course. Like that's an opening chapter. Like I love stories, and that's why I always implement stories into like how I got there. And the story of how I got into lettering was that I looked over my Instagram one day and I realized like there was just no beauty in it. There's nothing beautiful about it. I was just sharing random pictures here and there of some friends, sunset, food, my vacations or whatever. And like on an irregular basis, like right now I would really, really freak out if I saw somebody or if I was posting that way. And so it made no sense. Like the only reason to follow me if you knew me, and even then that wouldn't make sense at all, because like I'd rather just not see that at all than, yeah, because like why would you be interested in my salad? That's a question I've asked myself. And so I actually dragged away everything that I've created back then. Like I deleted all these old posts, and I decided like, all right, I'm gonna revamp that. And I use an app called Over, or actually before that it was another app, a smaller app, that just created everything for me, created the whole composition, the layout, the design, and I just had to add a picture and just had to write a word out. And so that's a baby step. And so that kind of moved on to like, all right, like let me add one more step. And always keep on improving your work, improving what you know, and getting better at what you do. And so I, over the years, kind of like decided, all right, what has led me to where I'm at today? And so these are the 4 steps that I teach in my online class. So that's Lettering 101 teaches about those 4 steps. So it's step number 1 is inspiration. Step number 2 is dissection. Step number 3 is creating. And the last step, number 4, is always adding one more step. So that's the growth that you have. And so if you take up the first 3 steps that you do, that's kind of like the first step. You start off with inspiration. That's where you take in things. So you have to be looking out for it. And I go through everything that you, like how do you collect inspiration? Where do you find inspiration? How do you like manage that inspiration that comes in? And then I teach you how to dissect that inspiration. So when you see something really cool, when you see something like this, when you, like if you're browsing on Pinterest and you see this and you're like, ooh, I really love this. Like there's a lot of concept ideas and elements behind that, like the way the type is used, the way it's formed, the way it's shaped, the way it's placed, the way the colors work together. Like there's so many different things. And it's kind of, again, taking the analogy of the cook, of the chef, is like if he creates a dish, like you're presented with a dish, you take a fork, you go through all these different textures and elements that is on that plate. Like you have maybe some cooked meat, you have some beautiful grilled vegetables, and like all these flavors in, and you put it in your mouth and you're just like, boom, like a taste explosion that goes on in your mouth. And so that's kind of like the thing that goes on in your head when you see a piece like this, is like, there's all these elements that will come at you. And so that's what I teach in the second part, is learn how to dissect this, how to pick out all these elements, because I grew up next to a watch factory. And so if you learn, like Swiss are really known for Rolex, Omega, and Swatch, and all of these brands. And so I grew up next to the Omega factory. So like where James Bond gets his watches from, that's where I grew up. And so he, like in an Omega factory, they will put together a watch, but it will also disassemble a watch again. And so if you want to learn how the clockwork works, then you need to learn how to disassemble it and put it all back together, because that's when you figured out how that works. And so that's really in the course. It's all explained there. And then step number 3 is creating. It's like putting it back together, being able to not just recreate the same clockwork, like the same watch that you have, but being able to come up with your own pieces. And so that's kind of what I learned is to say, like, when I come up with these like super easy task, or this word like the open, like I could go full length. I know how to add a ton of different ingredients to it, like how to spice it up, how to add all these twists and things, and know how to take other inspirational elements, not just copy someone else's work, but really learn all these pieces. And then finally, again, always pushing your work forward. So this is kind of where you start, is to really like do it as simple as you can possibly do, like write out a word, write out a letter, whatever it is, but then grow. Like what I have done for about like a whole like 100 days, I did a 100-day creative challenge, and that has helped me tremendously, because every single day I filled out a whole page in my sketchbook and with all these different styles of words, and I tried out new styles every single day and improved upon that. And so that was a huge help to my success and my growth. And that's what I'm teaching you, all these 4 steps bundled up, and how you can apply that. And so this is why I really recommend that course, because not only will that teach you what you need to know right now, but you can rewatch that course in a couple of months and then restart using all these elements, all these steps, and go through that, because I still use the 4-step creative process every time, again and again.
Thanks, Stefan. That's great. Now, looking in here, we've had a few requests for like some different letters. So some that were coming up, we had some requests for the letter P, the letter M, and the letter S. So those are 3 that we got. And beyond that, one more technique question was about adding shadows. So Gabby said, how are you able to add shadows?
The one-word technique? What was that exactly?
So the last question was about shadows. So how do you add shadows to the text?
So again, if you think about P, like P's, there are a ton of different variations. So first we'll start off with just a single, like this is wait, let me switch over here. This is a sans serif P. Then you can kind of like switch it up and go with like a serif style P. You can go with a Gothic like P, kind of like that. And that's a very bad version of it. I would probably have to relook that and how to do it really well. But again, by constantly trying out and improving it's piece by piece, you can kind of like improve that on. And you can go through all these variations. But now probably the question that was for the P was like, how do you do a P, like a script style P? So there's one where it's where you go around and as you go on, like you'll learn like different styles of P. So for example, this is it's kind of like the Pinterest P. The Pinterest P has kind of like a loop inside and kind of creates like this pin at the same time. One of my favorite as well is pretty much this one, but then you can also just kind of like push it down and then kind of add like a big loop. I usually love letters that are really top heavy. So kind of like adding the loop here big, like most, like if you do, I have this weird tick where I've tried to undo something from Procreate, from drawing on an iPad. So if you see me do this, this is exactly why I'm trying to undo something. But yeah, this is kind of like how I would draw a P. And again, different styles. And there are like a million of different styles that you can go through here. Then we had the M. So M, you can go like a capital M in script style. You can go the other way around as well. And again, just trying out these things, like sometimes like one style of M like doesn't really look that pleasing to you. So you're like trying to figure out like, all right, how do I improve that? Like, where can I add some little elements, some textures, some styles to write off? And then like I could put that on a slant and write out here minutes. And so on. And then you just reapply the weights, the contrast to all the right places. And so you keep on adding here until you're happy. But what else do we have? We have probably need to figure out what I can do as well. Probably like Gothic M. Kind of more hard and difficult to draw, but like this kind of like would look cool too if you start drawing minimum or something like that. But basically what I would use is usually this type of M in my work, and this the other way around. So you can also just loop it more like that. So you have more loops. That one could do great for what do you call that? A ribbon style piece. So you can create all these elements in here. And that would probably be the coolest way to draw an M, like a ribbon styled M. And then lastly, we had the letter S. And so S, my favorite, again, top heavy. This is the S style that I love to draw. That's how it start off usually a piece is to draw this S super top heavy, adding also the contrast, the weight of the lines to the top, so that it really, I don't know, it just, like if you write surprise up here, that would look just sick in some cool way. The other one is also just the loop, again, bottom heavy. So it's funny because like my brother is totally the opposite of me. He doesn't do lettering or anything, but he says like he hates this top heavy letter. So he loves and enjoys the bottom heavy letters. And he's more of he works on in videography and like video production. But he actually learned to be a graphic designer. So he's a professional, or by trade, a graphic designer, but then moved into a different direction. And I kind of moved into the graphic design direction. And then what else? We have also I think this is kind of more the script style S that you have, but then you have serifs S, like absolutely stunning serif S that you can fill out as well. So there are really a ton of amazing style of S's that you can go for. And since this is pretty much the first letter of my name, it's always one that I struggle with the most, which is a normal thing to do. But again, M, these two, the P, probably this one, the P here. This is more, again, classical P that you would find in calligraphy. And yeah, different types of P here and there that you can draw. And then we had shadows. That was the other topic. How to add shadows to a letter. So let's simplify this letter thing here. So again, shadows is always an element that you can add to your lettering. Again, is a whole, it's kind of like an ingredient that you can add there. And let me just fill out here this letter. So what I would do is there are different types of letters. So there's a drop shadow. So that's the light that comes from one source. You got to determine where the light source comes from. And then you displace pretty much it, because you can always play around. Like if I hold this up, you can see that the light, like that's where the shadow hits and drops. And so if I hold it up here, there's basically no shadow that you see except a little bit here on this side. The higher up that I hold it and the higher up that I go this way, the further away the shadow will be and the less like hard it will come at. And so there are different types of shadows that you can draw. Like there's a shadow line, so where you just draw an outline on just one side, like in this case would be the bottom and the left, the right side. So right side here and the bottom side. So this is where I can put down my lines, and up here as well. And then I can also just add like some lines in here just to create this illusion that the shadow would go around, but like kind of like add some contrast between the lines here, just so it stands out a little bit more. But I could do the inverse piece where it's like really all this way, like traced shadows, and then just copy the same letter, exact same letter, and transpose it again. And so that would be easier if you just redid it quickly. So saying, going back again, drawing the same lines here, and then I just transpose it a tiny little bit, and so that will create this second letter that I just have. And so that's not all correct. And now I can just really fill out the shadow on this side and fill it out. But there can be shadow inside of a letter. So depending on like if you have an embossed letter, that is also an element that you can have, is you trace kind of like a middle line in between. You had all these pieces and you have the shadow on one side of the letter. And so that's kind of like more of a stone, like you would be carving out stones. That's kind of the style that you would go for, and how that will look. So a couple easy, simple techniques that you can add to your lettering.
Question here. There's a question here which I really like, and this comes from Beatrice. And Beatrice says, about color palettes, do you have any particular choice or any color combination will do for you? Is there any trend which dictates which palettes are trendy and in fashion?
I'm terrible with colors. You'll probably not guess that, but the reason why I wear black clothes and why I have like all black behind here and my couch is like all gray, like it's just so much simpler to work with gray and black and white. So most of my work on Instagram is kind of that, but like I choose to use the colors that I actually do enjoy. It's kind of like this, what is it? It's more like a turquoise, like the mix between blue and green. That's a color that I really enjoy. So I kind of have like these colors inside of here as well. So it's like, this is a light blue, this is the mix between, and this is a lighter version of it. In my lettering pieces, I often use kind of the things that I have at hand. So I just have blue at hand. Here it's all colorful, so that's also nice. But when I go for colored pieces, just like this one here, it's like to reduce the number of colors that I want to use for this piece. So going between like orange, red, and then kind of blue, and then reusing all of the same colors again, so that I'm not overusing all the colors. Like there's color theory and how to use colors. And for example, again here, like reducing it to the max, like that's the best way to learn color, is not to overuse all the colors, not using all the 12 primary colors of your watercolor palette, but to use all different types of colors. So like when you're going for palettes, you can actually use like trendy palettes, But the longer you go, you'll pretty much find the colors you really enjoy. Like, is it more pastel colors? Is it more strong colors? Is it more primary colors? Are there less saturated colors? And then you kind of learn like which combination go really well together. Like a blue and red, actually, those are contrasting colors, so they will hit each other. So you got to figure out like, do I like that? Because I do have both blue and red in here, but again, you put these together, like they're super strong contrast rich. But if I go these two colors here together, they're a lot closer and they kind of like harmonize a lot better together. But this one is a super primary color, and I really do not know enough about colors, so I don't teach anything about colors. But I always say, like, what I do teach in my composition class is, again, the amount of different styles that you use. Like, which style do you combine with what other style, and how many styles should you use in one composition piece? And so this is kind of like the question that you probably would come at, and this is what I will explain in the course.
All right. Now, Stefan, we're at just about time here, so I'm going to see if there are any last-minute questions in the chat. So any last-minute questions, please feel free to ask. In the meantime, so Andrea actually is coming in, or Andrea is coming in with the last question here, which is, what are some tips on finding quotes that work for lettering or are interesting enough to create a nice composition? And while you answer that, I'm just going to say, if everyone could just say thank you to Stefan in the chat for joining us today and sharing so generously his time and his energy and his knowledge. If you could just say thank you to Stefan in the chat, that'd be great. But yeah, in the meantime, Andrea's question was about finding tips on finding quotes that would work great for hand lettering.
So I have a whole Pinterest board saved with quotes, and one of the hardest things for me to do is to actually find really good quotes. So this is why I usually lean on the Bible, because I do love the Bible and I love the quotes that are in there. But even there, like, I always try to be inspiring and encouraging, and also add to someone's life, not just to write out what's just cool. Like, one of the quotes that was lettered a lot when I started out was like, not all those who wander are lost, kind of like this hipster quote that like everybody was wearing on a t-shirt probably in some way or some level or the other. And so I kind of hated that quote. And so trying to find good quotes that you are inspired by, that are encouraging, are helpful, those are actually quite hard to find. So I encourage you to read a lot, is to read through books that you enjoy. It's to go through Instagram pages, and again, save up the good stuff that inspires you or that spoke to you, because that's the one thing that you will actually be able to share more about. So whenever I find something that I really am encouraged by, I'll write down. If something is that I find really funny, like, there was this one quote that I started writing, like, oh man, what is that quote? I need to find that quote, because I'm still in the process of figuring out like how to letter it. And when I actually get it done, that will be amazing. That will be a joyful day. But in the meantime, like, I'm not sure how much chocolates equal happiness, but so far it's not 57. So you kind of can imagine like the Swiss chocolate guy in me that wants to, like, I already have this image in my mind, like there's so many chocolate wrappers all around, and like in the center of the quote, like, I don't know how many chocolates equal happiness, but so far it's not that. And you kind of like get the picture of like, oh yeah, he already tried to go through all these pieces. And so that's kind of like what I do with chocolates. Like, it has to have humor. Like, abs are great, but have you tried donuts? Like, that's a great quote. Or home is where the pants aren't. Like, coming up with like crazy creative ideas where you can really bring your imagination to life. And that's kind of like where my fun really starts, and where lettering actually takes up to another level. So go through the quotes, read through a lot of things. Like, do not get discouraged when you're reading through things that you feel like, oh, I'm not sure, like I've seen this, but it's not really speaking to me. And one thing that I want to say for sure is that you can actually draw the same quote over and over again. I learned that 2 years ago when I started seeing that quote, like, create something today, even if it sucks. And that quote stuck with me, and like it became a lot more to me because it kind of like embodied a lot of what I was believing in, especially in the creative realm. Like one of the talks that I'll share at Share What You Know, the Teachable conference, is again, it's create art, not excuses. And so I sometimes didn't create art because my excuse was I didn't have a quote that I wanted to letter. But create art, like create something today, even if it sucks, like I was able to reuse that quote over and over again. I've drawn it in like many different ways. And so this is where, like, if you have a quote that you really love, like make it happen today. Like I wrote, make it happen twice. Like there's number one here, make it happen. And then I wrote it again here in a different style. And my camera just turned blank. There we go. We're back. Last heart attack for Cameron. So here you can see like there are a ton of different ways that you can draw it. Like even the same technique can look different depending on how you do it. So again, try to create awesome work, try to create the coolest work, and always try to improve yourself. Like if I can leave you with one single tip, like always add one more step, always try something new, and always be courageous enough to try something new. Like you don't always have to be perfect, doesn't always have to look right. But again, my try always something here, that's actually, I'm gonna try to see if I can show you that. But if you look here, can you see this line? I kind of messed up the whole last part of my drawing. Like right now it's not that visible anymore, but depending on how you look at it, like it's a whole grayish piece, and I've tried to fix it. But that's what happens when I try to add one more step. Like I wanted to add like a kind of like a chrome effect on top of the happen to pop, make it more pop. And so sometimes you ruin a piece, you make it like less great, and that can happen. So don't worry about that, but like keep on pushing, keep on trying, and keep on improving yourself.
And that's beautiful. And that's a wonderful message to end on. And I'll just say, Stefan, in the chat, we have tons of love coming in. Everyone's saying, thank you, Stefan, you rock. Thank you, Stefan, this is awesome sauce. Humera says, thanks, Stefan, I'm still in high school. And whenever I look at your YouTube channel or Instagram, I can always understand it. So thank you so much for teaching me lettering. So all this wonderful feedback. So any kind of last words, or where can folks find you before we wrap this up?
So I'm trying to push as much content out on YouTube. So if you want to subscribe to my YouTube channel, be my guest. That will help us boost up the views and get more people in. One video that is dropping tomorrow is how to practice cursive lettering, because one of the questions I get asked, like I've been trying to help one Patreon, and like I've been coaching him one-on-one. And so Patreon is someone who supports me. And so like I showed him how to practice their cursive lettering. And so this is kind of like how it looks. Like you draw the skeleton, you create all these pieces. And I actually drafted a whole how to do that. And so you'll find there a video coming out tomorrow. There's going to be a blog post where you can download a free guide sheet, kind of like this one here. And so on. It's going to be a post on Instagram, so you can follow me on Instagram as well. That's where I usually post the most, but I'm trying to move on more on YouTube and really create the content to push out there. Teachable is where where I actually just launched my course on lettering in June or end of June, and so it's been out for a month or for a couple of months now, 3 months almost. And we've already have over thousands people who have signed up, who have gone through the course. We've had already in-person workshops of people who have done that. So if you wanted to learn more about lettering, the Ultimate Lettering course is for you. And you can just go give it a try, like try it out, see if it's for you. If it's not for you, you can always get a refund. We have this 30 days refund policy, and you are happy to use it. Like we get people who, we've had people that just felt like this is not for them, or they were a little bit more advanced, or they didn't feel this style of teaching is what was for them. But we've had so many people who've just been helped by those. And some of my in-person workshop people, they have rewatched the whole course and they are going through it again and again, because as I said it, like I still apply the same logic, the same principles over and over again. And so it's going to be a little bit different than what you probably would expect. I'm not going to show you exactly how to draw a specific style, but I want to teach you how to actually learn any style, whatever you see, to be able to dissect it. That's the goal of this workshop and this course, and how to create beautiful composition, not having to struggle with coming up with new composition. And so that's kind of like Teachable that you can find out there. And last words, create art, not excuses. Always be creating and have fun with it.
Amazing. All right. Thanks so much to everyone for joining us, and I hope to see you all on the other side. Take care, everyone. Bye.